Deep in the heart of Uzbekistan lies the city of Samarkand, an ancient crossroads of silk, stone, and stories. Beneath its golden domes rests a man who conquered half the known world. Timur, also known as Tamerlane, a name that once sent shivers through empires. Born in 1336, Timur rose from nomadic warrior to ruler of a vast Central Asian empire. His armies ravaged cities from India to Anatolia. His legacy was brutal, but legendary. When he died in 1405, he was buried in a tomb fit for a king nor, a conqueror of kings. The mausoleum called Gudi Amir still stands today. Its blue dome glows like a sapphire under the sun. Inside, Timur's body lies beneath a block of jade said to be cursed. And that's where our story begins. Not with Timur's life, but his death. More specifically, what happened when someone disturbed it. Fast forward over 5 centuries to June 1941, the world is on edge. Hitler has already invaded Poland and France. But one giant remains, the Soviet Union. That month, a group of Soviet archaeologists arrived in Samarkand. They were part of a state-sponsored mission to examine Timur's tomb. For science. For history. Maybe even for a little propaganda. Led by anthropologist Mikhail Gerasimov, the team wanted to reconstruct Timur's face. Gerasimov had pioneered facial reconstruction using skull measurements. He'd done it with Ivan the Terrible and Yaroslav the Wise. Timur was next. The team carefully entered the tomb. Locals warned them. Old men in the market muttered about a curse. "Whosoever opens this tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." That inscription was allegedly found inside. But some say it's just legend. Others claim it was reland ignored. On June 19, 1941, the tomb was opened. The body of Timur was exhumed. Notes were taken. Bones studied. Photos snapped. The team packed up their findings and returned to Moscow. The mood was triumphant. They had captured history. But the celebration didn't last.
They say history repeats itself, but what about the parts we forgot? Welcome to Echoes of History, the channel where we dig up the dusty corners of the past to uncover the weird, the wild, and the wait, what? Stories they didn't teach you in school. Grab your curiosity, and maybe a cup of tea, because what you're about to hear might just change how you see the world.
Just 3 days later, on June 22nd, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa. Nazi Germany invaded the Soviet Union. It was the largest military invasion in human history. Over 3 million German troops poured across the border. The Soviet Union was caught off guard. Cities fell. Millions died. The timing was eerie. Had they really awakened something? Some whispered it was Timur's curse, that disturbing his rest had summoned destruction. Stalin, famously skeptical, was reportedly shaken. He had no love for superstition until it stared him in the face. Rumors reached his inner circle, and remarkably, he listened. 2 years later, in December 1942, Timur's remains were reburied. With full Islamic rites, local elders attended. The tomb was sealed again with care. And just weeks later, some say even days, the tide of war began to turn. The Soviets won the Battle of Stalingrad. Hitler's Eastern Front began to collapse. Was it coincidence? Or something else entirely? Timur's curse became one of the most famous in modern folklore. But where did it come from? Is there any truth to it? Was there even a real inscription? Or was it Cold War myth-making? Before we answer that, we have to understand Timur himself. Who he was, what he believed, and why so many feared the power of his ghost. Because Timur didn't just conquer cities, he conquered memory. He crafted an image so terrifying that even centuries later his bones still held weight. He claimed to descend from Genghis Khan's bloodline, made Samarkand a jewel of Islamic art and learning, but also stacked skulls into pyramids as warnings. He left behind both libraries and fields of the dead. So maybe the idea of a curse isn't that strange. When you bury someone with that much history, something stays with them. A warning, a presence, or just fear passed down like an heirloom. The Soviet scientists didn't believe in ghosts, but maybe they should have. Because sometimes even logic can't explain timing. Just days, 3 days, between tomb and invasion. And while science gives one answer, history sometimes offers another. An echo, a shiver, a coincidence too loud to ignore. His strange beliefs about death and the centuries of legend that turned his tomb into something sacred and feared. A grave not just of bones, but of memory, and maybe warnings carved into stone. To understand the curse, we must understand the man. Tamerlane to the west was not just a conqueror. He was a symbol, a shadow stretching across centuries. Born in 1336 in modern-day Uzbekistan, near the city of Shahrazabs, a land of endless plains, blue skies, and tribal bloodlines, Timur claimed noble descent from Genghis Khan's lineage. But in truth, he rose through ruthless cunning. A master strategist, a gifted manipulator, and a man who turned chaos into empire. By the 1370s, Timur had carved out a kingdom in Central Asia, but he was just getting started. He'd move like a storm across Asia, Persia, and India. His armies took Delhi in 1398. The city bled and he left it smoldering. Baghdad, Damascus, Ankara. Timur's campaigns were a mix of brilliance and brutality. His tactic was terror. Cities that resisted were destroyed directly. He was said to build pyramids out of skulls. Not just to kill but to be remembered. But Timur was also a builder. He turned Samarkand into a center of art, science, and Islamic culture. Scholars, architects, poets, he brought them all. His empire was a paradox, elegant beauty and horrific violence. A sword in one hand, a book in the other. Timur saw himself as chosen, a divine force of destiny. His faith was deeply personal, shaped by Islamic tradition and Mongol roots. He commissioned monumental tombs and shrines. He obsessed over legacy and death. And in 1405, death finally claimed him on a campaign to conquer China. His body was embalmed and returned to Samarkand. There, beneath the dome of Guramir, he was laid to rest. And with that, the legends began. Locals believed his spirit was restless, that his grave should never be disturbed. Timur's tomb became sacred more than just stone. And perhaps that's where the curse found its roots. In the echo of fear passed from mouth to mouth. But is there truth behind the warning? Let's return to the inscription. Whosoever disturbs my tomb will unleash an invader more terrible than I was at real. Some claim the Soviet team saw it inscribed on the tomb or near it. Others say no such words existed. No photo ever surfaced. It may have been oral legend, embellished over centuries, but even legends have power. Power to haunt, power to shape decisions. Because when Hitler invaded just 3 days after the tomb's opening, even hardened skeptics started to whisper. And here's where the story gets stranger. After Timur's reburial and 1942 peace rituals, prayers, a proper farewell. The Soviets won at Stalingrad, the turning point of the war. Some say this sealed the curse's reputation. It didn't just punish. It rewarded restoration. Suddenly, what seemed like folklore became folklore reinforced by timing. But is there more? Some historians think the Soviets used the curse story for propaganda, to give their actions an air of myth, or perhaps to scare off other grave robbers. Timur's bones, after all, had strategic value. Gerasimov's reconstruction of Timur's face became a national symbol, a face of strength, power, Eurasian identity, and the idea that this face came with a curse made it all the more potent. Stalin himself was said to keep an eye on the project, not out of superstition, but symbolism. Warlord's legacy, wielded as softly as smoke. But fear isn't rational. Timur's legend was too big to stay in the past. Even today, local elders in Samarkand speak of the tomb with reverence. They say strange things happen when it's disturbed, sudden illnesses, unlucky accidents. And not just for those who open it, but for those who even think about doing so. Timur has become more than history. He's folklore wrapped in real events. A man who once ruled the earth, maybe still holds it in his grip. Whether it's a curse or coincidence, people hesitate now. The tomb has not been disturbed since 1942. No new excavations, no scientific poking around. Perhaps out of respect or fear. Maybe both. And still the jade slab rests over Timur's bones. Green as envy, heavy as fate, shining beneath the quiet dome of Guramir. If you visit, the air feels hushed, as though something ancient watches you, or listens. Why legends like these persist, and what they reveal about our fear of the past, and its unfinished business. Because history isn't always buried. Sometimes it waits to be disturbed, just like Timur. Long after the war ended, the curse of Timur still lingered. Whispers turned into books. Books turned into documentaries. And Timur's tomb became more than a burial site. It became a story about power and fate, and how even in death, some figures refused to rest. In the 1960s, Soviet officials began speaking more openly about the tomb. Some called the curse nonsense. Others weren't so sure. Mikhail Gerasimov, the anthropologist who opened the tomb, never recanted, but others around him spoke of misfortunes, accidents, strange dreams, unexplained illnesses. None of it proved anything. But in the realm of curses, proof isn't necessary, just patterns. Just enough coincidence to make the imagination run wild. In the West, the story took on a new life. Tabloids loved it. Hitler invaded after Curse Unleashed. They screamed. Television shows about the paranormal ran dramatic reenactments. A tomb, a warning, a war. It was too perfect to ignore. And so, Timur's tale joined a gallery of famous curses. Right beside Tutankhamun's tomb, the Bermuda Triangle, the Hope Diamond. These stories feed something primal in us. The idea that we shouldn't meddle with the dead, that there are places we simply shouldn't touch. It's not about science. It's about reverence and fear of what lies beneath. Timur's tomb remains closed today. Visitors are welcome, but the sarcophagus is untouched. No new excavations. No more scientific curiosity. Some say it's because of government red tape. Others say it's because no one wants to tempt fate again. Not after 1941. Not after everything that followed. In local Uzbek tradition, Timur is respected as a national hero. His statue watches over Samarkand. He is a symbol of strength, vision, and identity. But even that pride is laced with caution. The elders still speak in hushed tones about the tomb. Children are warned not to mock it, not to play near it, because legacy is not just about power, it's about energy. What we leave behind, and what echoes. Timur's story is a bridge between empire and legend, between historical record and haunted rumor. What makes it so enduring is its ambiguity. Was it truly a curse? Or just a tragic coincidence amplified by war and fear, some scientists say. There is no curse, only myth. But others remind us that myths often contain deeper truths. Not factual ones, but emotional ones. We create curses because we fear our own power, our intrusion, our desecration, especially when the past is vast and sacred. Timur's tomb is a cautionary tale, not just about war, but about memory, about listening to warnings and symbolic ones. Because history isn't always silent. Sometimes it murmurs through centuries. Sometimes it punishes arrogance. The Soviets thought they were in control, but the timing of events made even the skeptics pause. And to this day, no one can fully explain it. The curse lives on not in physical form, but in narrative. It's passed from documentary to blog, from elder to traveler. Some even say Timur's spirit is still restless, guarding his legacy, defending his place in history. The heavy green jade slab remains undisturbed, like a final warning in stone. Mir is now a place of pilgrimage. Historians, tourists, spiritual seekers, it's all drawn to the mystery, all standing on the edge of something unknowable. That's the power of stories like these. They pull us in not because we know the truth, because we don't. In a world full of data, facts, and logic, the mystery of Timur's tomb reminds us of the unknown and the danger of forgetting humility. Maybe the curse is real. Maybe it's just a tale. But in Samarkand, they still speak of it. And when you stand near the tomb, something shifts in the air. It's subtle, quiet, like a breath that doesn't belong to you, or a presence just beyond the veil. Timur is gonna but not forgotten. And maybe that's the truest curse of all, to be remembered forever through fear, through myth, through whispers carved in stone.
That's it for today's Forgotten Tale. If this story made you raise an eyebrow, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that dusty little bell so you never miss another echo from the past. Drop it in the comments. We're always listening for new echoes. Got a weird bit of history you think we should cover? Until next time, keep your curiosity loud and your history weird. That's it for today's Forgotten Tale. If this story made you